Up next on Florida Gateway College Television, it's Candidate Forum 2014, featuring the candidates for City Council in Districts 10 and 14, and candidates for County Commission in Districts 2 and 4. Candidate Forum begins at 7 p.m. Up next on Florida Gateway College Television, it's Candidate Forum 2014, featuring the candidates for City Council in Districts 10 and 14, and candidates for County Commission in Districts 2 and 4. Candidate Forum begins at 7 p.m. Up next on Florida Gateway College Television, it's Candidate Forum 2014, featuring the candidates for City Council in Districts 10 and 14, and candidates for County Commission in Districts 2 and 4. Candidate Forum begins at 7 p.m.
Good evening. I'm Chuck Hall, President of Florida Gateway College.
And I'm Danielle Decker, Executive Director of the Lake City Columbia County Chamber of Commerce.
Each election year since 1986, the college has had the pleasure of presenting candidate forums. These programs have provided voters with the opportunity to see and hear from the candidates running for public office.
These programs allow voters to get a better idea of where the candidates stand on today's critical issues.
Again this year, we welcome the Lake City Reporter as a co-sponsor.
Remember, early voting in Florida begins on August 16th.
On behalf of the students, faculty, and staff of Florida Gateway College, enjoy Candidate Forum 2014.
From Florida Gateway College, this is Candidate Forum 2014. Tonight, the candidates for Lake City Council in Districts 10 and 14. And the candidates for Columbia County Commission in Districts 2 and 4 will be here to answer questions of concern to you, the voter. Candidate Forum 2014 is sponsored by Florida Gateway College, also by the Lake City Columbia County Chamber of Commerce, the Lake City Reporter, by Potash Corp of White Springs, by Tommy Demas, Attorney at Law, and by Gators Dockside. Now, here are the moderators for Candidate Forum 2014. The news editor of the Lake City Reporter, Robert Bridges, and from Florida Gateway College, Mike McKee.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Candidate Forum 2014. Along with Lake City Reporter editor Robert Bridges, I'm Mike McKee. For the next 2 hours, we'll introduce you to the candidates for City Council, District 10 and District 14, and Columbia County Commission, District 2 and District 4. Tonight's forum, again, is brought to you by Gators Dockside, where we understand a group of folks are enjoying a forum viewing party there tonight. Attorney Tommy Demas, Potash Corp of White Springs. We'd like to thank them for their support of this worthwhile election year program. The rules for our forum this evening are that each candidate is given a 2-minute opening statement, each candidate is given a 2-minute closing statement, and each candidate is afforded 2 minutes to answer the questions that we have for them tonight. Our first segment of the night is with the candidates for Lake City Council District 10 between incumbent Eugene Jefferson, who sits in the middle, and challengers A.D. Farmer and Harold Perry. We drew numbers prior to coming into the studio this evening, and candidate Perry drew the number 1, and he has now 2 minutes to address the voters in the city of Lake City.
Good evening. My name is Harold Perry. I'm a resident of Lake City for 68 years. I'm married to Annie Perry. I'm a graduate of Richardson High School. I served in the Marine Corps Band and during the Vietnam era. I'm a deacon at Olivet Baptist Church. I've served on all kinds of committees through the last 40 years, such as the City Task Force of Lake City, the Cumberland County Boys and Girls Club of Lake City. I am a member of the American Legion Post 322, which was a commander. I'm the first vice commander of the 3rd District of the state of Florida. I've served on the committee with the BNS Cone Epps Lodge 1599, Golden Standard 167. I am committed to make this community a more prosperous and secure environment. My accountability is my responsibility to the citizens of Precinct 10 and of Lake City as we work together to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, an opening statement from the incumbent, Eugene Jefferson.
My name is Eugene Jefferson. I'm a resident of Lake City, Florida since 1981. I'm married to the Betty Wilson Jefferson. I was born and raised in Baker County, Florida, where I attended public schools and the Baker County school system, graduating in the year 1968. I attended Florida A&M University, where I received a BS degree in social services. After completion of Florida A&M University, I attended graduate school at Florida State University, where I received a master's degree in social work. My work experience, I began work with the state of Florida in 1977. I retired after more than 37 years of public services with the state of Florida. Began employment with then HRS, now Children and Family Services. And from there, I worked with the Florida Department of Corrections with primarily equal service with both of those agencies. I worked as a Senior Human Services Council Administrator. In 1998, I ran for and was elected by District 10 to serve as your representative as City Councilman, and I have faithfully served since that time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we have an opening statement from the other challenger, A.D. Farmer. Mr. Farmer, you have 2 minutes to address the voters of Lake City.
Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and registered voter of Precinct 10. My name is A.D. Farmer, and I'm seeking the office of City Councilman for Precinct 10. Before I get started, I want to like to thank the Florida Gateway College and the Lake City Reporter and all the supporters of this forum. I am running for the office once again because the people of Precinct 10 have been unrepresented by the incumbent. I am the only lifelong resident of Precinct 10. I'm also a graduate of Columbia High School and Florida A&M University. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now it's time for the question and answer segment of the broadcast. And to ask the questions is the editor of the Lake City Reporter, Mr. Robert Bridges. Robert, take it away.
Thanks, Mike. Mr. Perry, you drew the #1 spot. Based on your experience campaigning, What is most on the mind of voters in District 10?
While I've been campaigning, I've talked with people through the community, and they want honesty. They say they haven't been any honesty in the precinct. They feel shame the way things have been going on. And they have poor infrastructure. Streets are still running, water all over everywhere. We have 2 daycare centers off of Florida streets where the ditches are still like it was back in '62. And when they should have covered that up so the mosquitoes wouldn't be around the kids. Well, they got 2 daycare centers with a ditch running through there, snake infested, and that should have been cleaned up a long time ago. We got lots of things that over the last 8 or more years that has nothing been did, and people are really getting tired of it. They're really getting tired of lightning, poor lightings, and the streets are just terrible. They repaved the street, but for its drainage, there's no drainage, and it's just terrible. And people have asked me to do something about it, and I plan to do something about it by forming a committee in the community that helps me go through the community, and we make decisions on things that need to be changed. It's just and just streets and lighting and stuff. All these years, nothing has really been did for it.
Thank you. Mr. Jefferson, the same question for you. What is most on the minds of voters in District 10?
As I go through the streets campaigning, the most comments I get is they're concerned about crime. They're concerned about the safety of the streets. They're concerned about the more visibility of law enforcement. They are concerned about infrastructure. Yes, our streets some of them are in bad shape due to poor infrastructure. Some has been overlaid. Some are still in dire need of overlaying. The city has overlaid some last year, and we plan to, as much as budgetary restraints would allow, we plan to do the same this year. They are concerned about the neighborhoods. They're concerned about dilapidated homes and overgrown structure. But overall, I think that the city has a mission and the city has a plan to alleviate and to provide a service to the citizens as the citizens expect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jefferson. Mr. Farmer, finally, same question for you. Based on your experience campaigning, what is most on the minds of voters in your district?
During my campaign, the most concern of the people are accountability, which has come from the councilman. Like they say, the councilman is not visible. He don't speak up for the precinct 10. The city wants to be spoken up for. The people want to be represented. They are taxpayers. There haven't been any major projects completed in precinct 10. When you're saying overlaying, they want to know about paving. Infrastructure, drainage, we have like 2 major hurricanes, and the north end of precinct 10 is always underwater. No one comes out. Even when you go up to like the city, the people basically don't want to know is like, why haven't there been any funds or money spent in precinct 10? They want to know, like capital outlay. They want to know, hey, have sidewalks been paved? Have roads been paved? Have pipe been piping? It's really bad on the north end. Like I said earlier, we have a daycare center there, and we have drainage that's been there for like 12 years. It's never been addressed. Flooding, police, the city police department. And another thing, people are really concerned about our youth. We have a community center right there in precinct 10, which the city don't have any kind of involvement to do. And one thing that people really would like to see is the city to get more involved with the county and become one process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farmer. We'll stick with you for the next question. Let's elaborate on something you just mentioned, city and county working together. This is an age-old question, but it never seems to be answered. What needs to be done to mold a good and effective working relationship between the city and the county?
Well, I think at first, the two agencies need to get together and sit down. Like, for instance, we have a major industry coming up from Plum Creek, and when I went back and looked, some of the supporters and stockholders is Columbia County. But I just see nowhere on there where the city of Lake City was a stockholder to something that's going to be major impact to the economy around here. When you're talking about jobs coming, training and things like that, the city, I don't see any kind of involvement with the city. I feel like if those two agencies sit down and actually talk, that will make Lake City better as a whole. Law enforcement, fire, taxi, just two agencies. You know, city has like things like the saying about Lake City. Like, for instance, dealing with the Lake City Columbia Youth Football Association, that if a kid stay in the county, he shouldn't play football because he's in the city. I feel everyone in Lake City is part of Columbia County. Everyone in Columbia County is part of Lake City. And that would be a good venture for both agencies to sit down, and I think we'll be a whole lot better off. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jefferson, same question. What can be done at some point to forge a good and effective working relationship between the city and the county?
I think that there's communication is the key. The city and the county needs to come together and lay personal agendas aside and do what and discuss what is best for the community as a whole. One of my comment here mentioned about the city not being involved in bringing new developments to the city or to the community. And the city has always been a player in bringing new interventions into the city. I'm not sure where he get his information from, but the record speaks for itself. Targets, for example, the city was a key player in bringing that industry to the city. So the city has always been a key player in development and bringing new industry and new facilities, new resources into the community.
Thank you. Mr. Perry, same question. What can be done to forge a better working relationship between the city and the county?
I've been advocating that they should start working close together because it's an enrichment for the city and the county and for the citizen of Lake City. And as far as jobs and whatnot, warehouses and stuff like that, the county has to take a lead. The city has to be pulled into it. And for its recreation, the city was in recreation. They got completely out of it. They don't assist the county in anything like that for the youth and whatnot. The county, it seems, took over it. And the city just lagged behind. First, as Precinct 10, we don't get any representation, and we need to get more representation. And don't wait till election time to go out there and see what's needed to be did. This is a full-time job. If you get in the community, you wouldn't have to ask nobody. You'll know what's going on. And we're just getting poor representation from this councilman that's in there now. And the people are tired. They're tired. We need somebody that's going to work hard. Get with the county, say what we need. Don't lag behind. Get out there and be a leader and say what we need so we can make forward progress in the city of Lake City.
Thank you. I'll stick with you, Mr. Perry. How good a job is the Lake City Police Department doing, and what, if anything, could they be doing better?
When I was come up, the police department, they interact with the youth. They didn't go out there just grabbing somebody to put in jail. They interact with the youth and whatnot, set up stations, substations, so they can figure out what's going on instead of just running somebody down and putting them in jail. It's a community thing. It's not just to put people in jail. Work with the community. Get with the civil leaders and find out what can they do better to bring the police department and the youth together or work better within the jurisdiction. We do need substations. We need substations. That would help a whole lot. They'll be visible. We need at least 2 substations in the northern area so they can be visible, which we don't have. They need to interact with the citizen, and that way we get more representation, more done with crimes and everything else.
Thank you. Mr. Jefferson, same question for you. What, if anything, can the Lake City Police Department do better?
The Lake City Police Department, in my opinion, is a very functional police department. It's very much a part of our community. The police department, the chief have a breakfast with the chief on a quarterly basis, and I attend almost each one of them as time permit. Never have I seen one of my opponents there, and they'll talk about their visibility in the community. Their visibility in the community is almost non-existent, in my opinion. One of my opponents, Mr. Farmer, he has never been to a city council meeting since he lost the last previous election. Only one time that I can recall he went. The last few months, Mr. Perry shows up when he placed his name in the hat for election. That's the wrong message to send to people that you want to represent. You has to be involved in the community. You has to know what's going on in the community. You needs to be involved by attending council meetings, see what's going on, see what the issues are, see what we are discussing. So it's easy to sit back and point fingers and say that no one is being active or you're presenting poor representation, but the records speak for itself. I'm there. I'm in the community. I'm known in the community. I appear when there are public functions going on, but I can't say that about my counterparts.
Thank you, Mr. Farmer. Finally, same question for you. What, if anything, can LCPD do better?
I think more they could work more with the youth. Like I work at Challenge Challenge Learning Center with the Columbia County School Board, and I think more interacting with kids to have preventative programs, senior citizen programs right there at the Richardson Community Center. Before Mr. Jefferson spoke about a breakfast quarterly. How about, I would like to see officer stop sometime and one of the elder person say, my name is Officer Farmer, I'll be patrolling this neighborhood, I'm so-and-so, and by first being visible, by coming to a city council meeting, there's a lot of things that's not even talked about at the city council meeting. Things are really are hid behind the door. The people are the taxpayers. They have a right to know what's going on, and things are not being brought out and being truthful about. First being visible, you can go out right now and ask the citizen who's Mr. Jefferson is, they will not be able to pick him out in front of a lineup. And for the police department, I just hope they will get more involved in the community with the people and not talking about it quarterly for a breakfast. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farmer. We stick with you for the next question. In very specific terms, how should we address the issue of stormwater runoff in the city?
Well, for that, we have a public work department, we have engineers. It's about prioritized. I mean, if you have a precinct that have a major problem, all the council has to do is to bring that up in front of the other councils. If you don't address it, if you don't address it at the board's meeting or bring it in front of the council, how would it ever be addressed? We have other precincts that have major projects, but in 10, it's never brought up. All you have to do is just speak up and say, I have a project in 10, I have a goal to strategize, and I like to put this on the board. That has not been did yet, and that's the major concern of the people. They want someone who's going to speak for them and work for them and be a public servant. Thank you.
Mr. Jefferson, same question. What needs to be done in very specific terms about stormwater runoff?
Stormwater has been a long-standing problem within our city. We have some of our streets and some of our stormwater has not been addressed since implementation. Due to aging system, it's time for those things to be addressed again. And the city are in the process of doing that now. We are considering a stormwater fee. Obviously, it costs money to renew your infrastructure, but it's time for us to take a look at that due to the age of our infrastructure. And as far as stormwater runoff, it is a problem in various areas of our city due to the old infrastructure, due to the time that the infrastructure was implemented or put down. But it is time to start addressing those things and possibly come up with some kind of a stormwater fee to pay for some of these projects.
Thank you. Mr. Perry, finally to you. What's your answer or proposal for the stormwater runoff issue?
City councilman had time to fix this 15 years ago. And due to the fact he says I'm never at meeting, I have brought it up at meetings. And like Mr. Farmer said, he never take initiative to speak up for his district. They could have been done that if most of the funds are spent south of town. When I was a kid, they had the storm was like that, over drainage. Never was fixed, and all of a sudden now you're talking about a fee. When they had funds to do it, they send all the money on the south of town. I heard Mr. Jefferson once made a statement that all the money goes into one pot. But if he don't speak up for his district, he don't get anything. So he don't care where the money go. He could have been done fixed some of this drainage years ago. I know he fixed dug a dam a pit off of Railroad Street. Water don't run in there at all. But they got the dirt out so they can build up a dollar store. Water haven't drained in there yet. But on Railroad Street, the water's always in the road. On Washington Street, the water's always in the road. If they used it collectively and have did something in the city, in the community of the 10th district, we wouldn't have all this problem. Just like them two daycare centers got snake infected drains wide open around two daycare centers. And if he's in the district looking at it, it's been there for years and he hasn't did anything about it yet. Something needed to be did besides always when it comes to the north end, we have to pay a fee. Other ends, they get it free.
Thanks, Mr. Perry. Last question of the evening for this panel. Mr. Perry, in very specific terms, what makes you a better qualified candidate for the City Council than your opponents?
Being retired from the VA hospital, working in the operating room, and being retired from the County Road Department, where I work with infrastructure, drainage, and pipeline, that give me a good, and knowing people, going around and seeing people, talking with people, let them talk to me and listening to them, working at Winn-Dixon, and when people come to you and ask you about certain things and ask your opinion of it, going through the community and talking with people. This what drug me into the race because they have nobody they can talk with. But I know about infrastructure. I work with the county road department where drainage was, and we built pipelines and whatnot so the drainage would run off. Even when they had the hurricane, the tornado came through, we worked all in the city. All the city councilmen did. They rode riding in buses. Never got out their buses one time to see what was going with how a person felt. They rode through the city where the damage was did in a van, escorted by the police department. And I was working with the county out there on the road looking at them. That's poorly.
Mr. Jefferson, same question for you. What makes you the most qualified man on stage for District 10?
Well, I'll start by saying, Mr. Perry, all of that talk is cheap, and all of that you're saying is not true, because I was a part of that. I was there when the storm came, so I know. But anyway, it makes me, I'm better qualified because of experience. I've been, as I said, on the council since 1998, and if I was as poorly as Mr. Perry says that I am, well, then the choice was given to the voters to remove me from there. Apparently, they felt otherwise. So, to you, Mr. Perry, talk is cheap. Okay. But I'm better qualified by virtue of experience. I know what the needs of the city is. I went through the bad times with the city, and I went through the good times with the city. And I have no intention of bailing out now because I see a bright future for our city. The city has a mission. We're looking in the future. We are preparing for the future. We're preparing for growth. And I think that's part of what a good councilman would do. As far as visibility in the community, I disagree with you with that, Mr. Perry, but you're entitled to your own opinion. My records speak for itself. And as to Mr. Farmer, you said I'm unknown in my community. I think you need to check your records on that as well. You can ask anyone in my community. I'm known, and I'm there, and I'm visible. Thank you.
Mr. Farmer? Why are you the best man on stage for this job?
Like I quoted earlier, I'm the only lifelong resident of Precinct 10 running for this election. I was born and raised here. Because of this, I'm closely connected to the people and can understand their issues and their struggles. I have a caring heart for the people and do the best to listen and follow through. Finally, not only do I represent the people of Precinct 10, I want to represent the Lake City with honesty and integrity. I have just a natural bond with the people. I was born and raised there, right there off Jackson Street on 100, and the same issue that Mr. Perry was talking about earlier. I'm actually a living resident. I've been right there. When the last time the storm came through, me and Mr. Lucius George stood out there on the street with water up to our ankles. I had to carry my son out my house to the road out there. And when Mr. Jefferson came by, told Mr. Jefferson, said, well, why don't we go talk to the city manager about this and see if we can have a plan. Mr. Jefferson, this has been 4 years later, he never came back since then. And for us taking action, he is not that type of person by being visible. It's not in the community. It might be in the Lake City Reporter, but it's not in the community. Thank you.
And that concludes the lively question and answer portion of the broadcast. It's now time for each candidate to make a 2-minute closing statement. And since candidate Perry went first, he will go last. Mr. Farmer, you have 2 minutes to make a closing statement to the city of Lake City.
In closing, I would like to thank my family and my supporters. I want you to know that when I'm elected, I will be mindful of the voters who elect me and place their needs first. I promise to be accountable, and I will speak to you. Please remember to go vote. Early voting is August 16th to the 23rd. The general election is on the 26th. Listen, I want to tell you, I want to take my tie loose first. Don't let what happened in 2010 happen again. Nothing changed. It's like, I want to say, if you change nothing, nothing will change. It's time for a change, and I know the people from being out, politicking, it's time for a change to have a representative of District 10. I'm that person. Vote A.D. Farmer. I will speak up for 10. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Farmer. And now the incumbent, Eugene Jefferson, you have 2 minutes to make a closing statement.
Thanks to the Gateway Community College, the Lake City Reporter, and Columbia County Chamber of Commerce for allowing me this opportunity. Most importantly, thanks to our citizens, our county residents, for allowing me into your homes. To the residents and voters of Precinct 10, August the 26th is an important date, a date you will decide who will represent Precinct 10 for the next 4 years. I have represented Precinct 10, as I previously said, since 1986. I have the desire to continue to represent you. As I promised before, I will represent you with integrity, honesty, respect, self-commitment, and professionalism. If you were to re-elect me, I will continue to serve you with that same level of honesty, integrity, and respect. I'm committed to serve. I'm committed to my district. I'm committed to you as the voters of Precinct 10. On August the 26th, I humbly, respectfully request that you vote for me, Eugene Jefferson, City Councilman, Precinct 10. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, candidate Harold Perry, you have 2 minutes to address the voters of Lake City.
I want to thank everybody that's responsible for this program. I heard honesty, dependability. Well, from what I've been watching and reading and noticing through the community, it has not been honest. The election has not been being honest. But I hope this one turn out to be honest and we don't wind up in court again. But like my motto is, accountability and responsibility. That's what I am to you. Elect me as your city councilman, and you'll see me every day. It'll be a full coach job for me. And I won't make all decisions. I will form a committee over the district that we all will sit down and think about the issues and resolve all issues in the thing. And I ask you to vote for me on election day. Harold Perry, accountability and responsibility to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, candidates. This concludes the first segment of Candidate Forum this evening. When we come back on Florida Gateway College Television, we'll meet the candidates for Lake City Council District 14. You're watching Candidate Forums on Florida Gateway College Television. Don't go away.
As a paramedic, you have your own goals and a journey to follow. And that's why Florida Gateway College offers a bridge to success, starting from where you are now.
I wanted more in the medical field. I wanted a steadier pace.
That's why we offer licensed paramedics a way to become a registered nurse in a little over a year.
I love being a nurse. You want to know why? Because I'm making a difference.
Start your journey today at Florida Gateway College.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
Maybe he's really focused.
Hey, Michael. Michael. Maybe he likes spinning the wheels.
Maybe he just loves trucks.
Maybe he's just being a boy.
Preoccupation with objects is one early sign of autism. Learn the others today. The sooner it's diagnosed, the better.
Hey, Hard, what's this? That's my resignation letter. You're resigning? Why? Because you're constantly ignoring me. You're half as active as you used to be, and you eat stuff like this. You've been putting me under a lot of pressure lately. That's why I'm ready to quit. I forgot. I'll do better. Please, don't quit on me. Okay, but remember, it's not what you say. It's what you do.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you.
Let's go for a walk.
Uncontrolled high blood pressure could lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get yours to a healthy range before it's too late.
Welcome back to Candidate Forum 2014. Along with the editor of the Lake City Reporter, Robert Bridges, I'm Mike McKee. Tonight's forum is brought to you by Gators Dockside, Tommy Demas, attorney at law, and Potash Corporation of White Springs. We'd like to thank them for their support of this worthwhile election year program. The rules for the second segment of the evening are the same as the first. Each of the candidates for City Council District 14 will get a 2-minute opening statement and a 2-minute close. Then each candidate will be offered a 2-minute answer on each of their questions. Let's get started by meeting the candidates for Lake City Council District 14. The incumbent is George Ward, the challenger, Ricky Jernigan. We drew numbers before we came into the studio, and candidate Jernigan, you drew the number 1. You now have 2 minutes to make an opening statement to the voters of Lake City.
Good evening. My name is Ricky Jernigan. First of all, I want to start off by telling Mike and Robert, thank you for hosting this event, the Florida Gateway College and the Lake City Reporter. Lake City has been my long life home. My family and friends live in Columbia County, which this is why I feel to serve as City Council in District 14. I'm an Army veteran, and for 31 plus years, I've been employed with the Department of Correction. After years of hard work and dedication, I'm a correction officer lieutenant at Union Correctional Institution. I attend Soul Server Church. My journey with Christ is central to my life. I have a very, very dangerous job at DOC. I put myself in the Lord's hand when I put that uniform on and walk behind those fences and supervise inmates. I gladly do my job because I know it matters. It keeps the public safe. I also volunteer my time with the youth in our community. And as a kid, I participate for character building. And as an adult, I do it for fitness. For local children without a positive role model, I find my athletic mindset
is good for them. I see too many sad cases of men behind bars that started off as a juvenile offender without a father in their home. I want to run for this office because I know it matters. It's time for change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now time for the incumbent, George Ward, to make a 2-minute opening statement to the voters of Lake City.
I too want to say thanks to the college and the sponsors of the Lake City Reporter and Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this event. My name is George Ward. I am a lifelong resident of Lake City. I was educated through Columbia County Schools. After graduation in 1969, I enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1971 and served my country as a sergeant in the Air Wing of the United States Marine Corps. Upon leaving the Marines, I came back to Lake City and started college at Lake City Community College at the time, got my AA degree, and upon finishing that, I transferred to the University of North Florida and got a Bachelor's of Business Administration with my actual degree was in accounting. I came back to Lake City in 1977, married my wife Joan from Jacksonville. We have 3 sons, Chris, Jeff, and Stephen, who are all lived here and have been educated here. I took over the operation of Ward's Jewelry and Gifts and Ward's Service Center Incorporated from my dad in 1977. And since then, my life has been primarily service to the community. I have been a director of the Chamber of Commerce for 2 years. I was a member for 4 years as a trustee of the Lakeshore Hospital Authority. I served as a director of the Chamber of Commerce, the Downtown Action Committee and president of Downtown Action Committee for 2 years. My life has been service to the community. There's several other things on the list, but don't have time to explain all of that.
Okay, thank you, candidates. It's now time for question and answers for the broadcast, and to ask the questions is the editor of the Lake City Reporter, Robert Bridges.
Thanks, Mike. Mr. Jernigan, first question to you. Based on your experience campaigning, what is most on the mind of voters in District 14?
Based on from what I'm hearing and gathering from the citizens in District 14 is the road paving, the sewage, and not knowing or not seeing who's the city council in that particular district. For some apparent reason, they're not knowing when the meetings are, even though it may be in the Lake City Reporter first and third Mondays of every month. However, a lot of people do not get the Lake City Reporter or the channel or radio station that it may provide. However, they just need to see and know exactly who represents them in their community for District 14. And so far, from what I'm gathering, they have different problems and situations. For example, again, they talk about the roads being paved. They talk about the sewage bills. They talk about the garbage. Things of that, like that, is very, very important to the citizens of District 14. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ward, same question. As you campaign, what, in your perception, is most on the mind of voters in District 14?
I've been hearing some of the same things, but there's some pretty good reasons for why some things have not been addressed for a while. We've been in a horrible economic downturn, and the City of Lake City and City Council has maintained a low millage rate since 2006. We have not had a millage rate increase. Consequently, our income to the city has been very flat. Our budget is running about the same that it's been for the last 4 or 5 years. Consequently, there has not been a lot of money to do a lot of other projects. We've been doing the basics. We, in 2006, had 258 employees. Through attrition, we're down to 238 now. We've been trying to trim fat where we can, streamline the government as much as we can. And as far as sewage, we've gotten a state-of-the-art waste treatment plant under design. That'll be coming online very shortly. And we'll then be remodeling the St. Margaret's Road wastewater treatment plant. We've got the best water system in the state of Florida. We have, our water has been ranked as the best water in the state in 2 or 3 judgings over the past several years. The city's been very proactive in trying to maintain and take care of the community while also keeping taxes low. And I think that's a great benefit to the community.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. We'll stick with you for the next question. The city recently procured a $6.4 million grant to extend and widen the taxiway at Lake City Gateway Airport. What's the next step for our airport?
We also, that's true, in fact, we found out, I've just returned today from the Florida Airports Council conference, and I found out today that we were supposed to do a 5% match in that $6.4 million, and it's been fully funded by the FAA and FDOT. So the city won't have to come up with any money for that. That's going to be quite a few jobs for the contractor that's going to be doing the work. The good part of it is we will have a new parallel taxiway at no cost to the city.
Thank you, Mr. Jernigan. Same question for you. The taxiway is great. What's the next step?
Mr. Robert, that's something that I'm not familiar with. However, that's going to be one of the first things that come to my mind whenever I get elected for this position. So this is something that I'm not familiar with, and I'm not going to elaborate on it because I'm not familiar with it. Thank you.
Very well. Sticking with Mr. Jernigan, how do we address the long-term issue of stormwater runoff within the city limits?
That is another question that I'm not familiar with. I'm not with the, I go to the meetings, of course, but that's something that the city council is dealing with right now. So I'm not going to elaborate on that or question that simply because I'm not on the same level as answering that particular question. So I will not answer that question, sir.
Okay, that's fair. Mr. Ward. Stormwater runoff. Sorry, please continue.
I'm sorry. Stormwater runoff is definitely a problem for the community. We are aware of that. We, in the last 2 years, have repaved a lot of roads and tried to fix the stormwater problems at that time. There's still major problems in some of the older sections of town, and it's very expensive to do this. We're talking about not just replacing pipes in the ground, but you have to tear up roads to replace the pipes and then figure out where that water is going to go. Like I say, it's a very expensive proposition. The only way we'll be able to do a whole lot on stormwater is hopefully the economy will rebound and we'll start seeing tax revenues coming up. We might have to levy the stormwater utility rates or raise millage one way or the other, but as I said before, we are bare bones in the budget right now, so there's not a lot of room for stormwater. There is about $500,000 that it's been put in the budget this year to start addressing some of the problems, and hopefully that'll be evenly divided amongst the districts.
Thanks. Mr. Ward, we'll stick with you. Under what circumstances might it be wise to consolidate some city and county services and end the what is an apparent duplication of effort in some instances?
There are probably several areas that we could consolidate, and it's been discussed and been tried in the past to no avail. Certainly the fire department could be consolidated and probably streamlined. You wouldn't have duplication of the hierarchy for for two departments. You'd only have one. Possibly the police department could be consolidated with the sheriff's office as they did in Jacksonville. I do like the fact that we have our own police department because we do have officers dedicated only to the city limits, whereas if it was consolidated, I don't know that you'd have the same kind of coverage.
Thanks. Mr. Jernigan, same question. Under what circumstances might we consolidate some city and county services?
Well, consolidation, that's something that we all need to look into if it can be done. However, if it cannot be done, I don't think that consolidation would be a good idea. If it can save our taxpayers money and services, and we have the same benefits that come from it, of course, consolidation would be the ideal thing to do. However, once again, when you get into the power struggle of who's the boss and who's not the boss, things don't work out that well. But if we come together, work together as a team, anything can be done. It doesn't matter what department or agency that it may be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jernigan. How good a job is the Lake City Police Department doing, and what, if anything, could they do better?
I think the Lake City Police Department is doing a fairly good job. I've met with the chief, and she has said that she wanted the police department to be first class, and she's working towards that goal. However, she's got she needs the officers and the staff to work towards that goal. Working good side by side with your officers and knowing your officers and knowing the community. If we have a problem on one side and we're not having major problems on the other, of course we need to put more officers in that area. The police department is doing the job with the means and support that they have. So therefore, we have to look at them and make sure that the officers and the chief and assistant chiefs are doing the job the proper way. And that comes in the guidelines of the city manager and the councils. So therefore, if we can help the chief and the assistant chief do the job that needs to be done and give them the funds and the means to do the job, I don't think we should have any problems.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Same question for you. What, if anything, might the Lake City Police Department do better?
I think the police department does an excellent job right now. Our chief has been very proactive in hiring new young officers and training them. They've completely streamlined the department and changed the hierarchy of the department. With there again, everything goes back to budget constraints. Certainly, if we had more officers on the road, that would be a better situation. But it all comes back to the budget. It has to balance every year. And general fund revenues, as I've stated before, have been flat, and we've been hesitant to raise taxes. But the police department does an excellent job. I have had personal experience with it recently. Somebody drove a truck through the front door of my jewelry store downtown, and I got a call that the alarm had gone off and got a call from the police department. And by the time I got there were 3 police officers and a fire truck, and the street was cordoned off. So they quickly respond, and I think it's very good for the city.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ward, we'll stick with you for the next question. Renovation of the Blanche Hotel may cost upwards of estimates I've heard of $10 million. What's the future of this landmark downtown building?
Mr. Bridges, I think that it's a landmark we can't let go. We need to find somebody that would come in and rehab the building. I'm afraid that perhaps only government entities could possibly do this. We do have the opportunity and have had a couple of, in fact, this past week we had somebody that's shown the second level of interest in it that had a meeting with Mr. Johnson. That's an investment group out of Georgia. And they came on and said that they would like to rehab the building, but probably only for commercial use. There had been talks at some time about using it for residential up on the upper floors as well. But the city's in a position with the Community Redevelopment Agency to help fund some of the rehabilitation on the building and hopefully make it into a cost-effective and viable alternative for somebody to come in and rehab.
Thanks very much. Mr. Jernigan, same question. What's going to happen to the Blanche?
The Blanche Hotel is a landmark for Columbia County. Of course, I would have the citizens decide rather what we want to do. And of course, we got to have a vision for the Blanche Hotel. If we get somebody to go out and see what it would cost and try to get the government funds to upgrade the Blanche Hotel. At this time here, the Blanche Hotel is just sitting there. We need to do something about it, whether we decide to tear it down or uplift it, upgrade it. There's things out there that we can do to save that city landmark, and I think we need to do just that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jernigan. If elected, do you have a specific project, a pet project, if you will, in mind that you'd like to tackle right off the mark?
Yeah, a couple of things I would like to do. First of all, I like to put something out there to let the citizens know when we meet and where we meet and exactly what's going on in the community. There's no hiding. You need to see me and I need to see you. That's going to be the first thing that I do, make sure that everybody knows who their city council is and what days and times the meetings are. That way, if they have a problem or a situation that they can't handle or don't know how to handle it, I want to be that voice for the citizens of District 14 and the citizens of Lake City, Florida. Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Ward, same question. Do you have a specific project in mind, a pet project, something that you would like to take up immediately upon taking office yet again?
Well, I am chairman of the airport committee, and you asked about those projects a little while ago. There is another project that I've neglected to mention, and it's going to create jobs at Aero Timco. We have received a $600,000 grant, which again we probably won't have to put any match for, to rehab one of the hangars at Aero Timco that's supposed to create about 65 jobs, and those are good high-paying jobs. We need to continue to strive to pull in that type of thing. The other thing too that is one of my pet projects, I'm also chairman of the Utilities Committee. We are working to expand the utility by building the new wastewater treatment plant at Kicklighter Road. And by doing that, we will be diverting some of the flows from the St. Margaret Road plant. And the hope is we'll be ready for expansion and growth on the west side of town when the economy starts coming back.
Thanks, Mr. Ward. Final question of the evening for this panel. Mr. Ward, in very specific terms, what makes you better qualified than your opponent to hold this seat?
I think my educational background and my experiences in life in business and my electronics background in the Marine Corps. I'm also, or I was, I let the license lapse. I'm an air conditioning contractor. We used to sell appliances and do appliance repair and plumbing. The jobs that we deal with the city council and the projects that we talk about are very technical in nature, and I have a great understanding of these issues. And consequently, I think I'm a very effective and good councilman for the city of Lake City.
Thanks. Mr. Jernigan, same question to you. What makes you better qualified to hold this seat?
But don't get me wrong. I'm a conservative as well. Mr. George Ward is a very, very good man. I respect him. My advantage is that I can be a leader and be on a team. I serve in the United States Army, and I work as a lieutenant with Department of Correction. The balance of leadership and teamwork can come down to a life or death scenario in my job. This has taught me a unique skill set for the public benefit. And of course, I'm going to get in there and do what's right by all the citizens. It's not going to be the west side, south side, north side, east side. It's going to be for everybody to make sure that if there's benefits to get any job or task at hand to be done, I want to be able to deal with it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, candidates. That concludes the question and answer segment of our program. It's now time for each candidate to make a 2-minute closing statement, and since candidate Jernigan went first, he will go last. Candidate George Ward, you have 2 minutes to make a closing statement to the voters of your precinct.
Mike, thank you again for this forum to be able to come before the citizens of Lake City. I have faithfully served District 14 for the last 13 years. I'm seeking election for another 4-year term. I think I have the knowledge and expertise to help make Lake City grow, to help provide more jobs, to help rehab the downtown area, to help rehab some of the streets and drainage problems, And like I say, with my background in technical expertise and also my accounting background as well, I understand the budgetary process and how we need to work to make things happen. So I humbly ask for your support and your vote in the election on August 26th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Candidate Ward. And now, Candidate Ricky Jernigan, you have 2 minutes to make a closing statement to the voters of Precinct 14, in fact, all of the city of Lake City.
Thank you, Mike. A city councilman has a large variety of duties and responsibilities. For example, urban planning, zoning, public work, economic development, establishing a budget, accounting for tax collectors, fire, police, service, all comes under the umbrella of a councilman, which I will be required to handle. As a councilman, I intend to review our sources and spending, reduce unnecessary programs and expenses, and finally, I invite the citizens to rejoice in their American dream. We are the greatest country on earth. More people live in freedom now than any time in history because of the courage and patriotism of our forefathers and ancestors. Thank you for your time and privilege to sit before you on this meeting. I'm asking for your vote, early vote, August the 16th through the 23rd, and your vote on August the 26th, 2014. Thank you again.
And this concludes the second segment of our candidate forum. When we come back on Florida Gateway College Television, we'll meet the candidates from County Commission District 2. You're watching Florida Gateway College Television. Don't go away.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
Being a registered nurse is a rewarding job. But if your career goals have you looking for more, Florida Gateway College can show you the way.
As a nurse, I love to help people, but I wanted to go further.
With our Bachelor of Science nursing degree, RNs have the opportunity to increase their career options and income-earning potential.
Now I've got more choices, and the extra money isn't bad.
Start your journey today at Florida Gateway College.
Get caught buzzed driving, and you could do some hard time.
Craig, knock it off.
Sorry, Mom. It could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. And that could set you back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
You make me wear my bike helmet. You taught me never to run with scissors. And to follow the swimming rules.
You tell me to stay away from drugs.
To always buckle my seatbelt.
So why do you keep a loaded gun in your drawer?
How safe is that?
You asked them to follow some safety rules. Now they're asking you. In fact, they're counting on you. Never let your gun get into the wrong hands. Remember, always lock it up. Visit ncpc.org.
Welcome back to the third segment of Candidate Forum 2014. I'm Mike McKee, the Executive Director of Media and Public Information at Florida Gateway College and a member of the Board of Directors of the Lake City Columbia County Chamber of Commerce. Tonight's forum is a joint production of the Chamber of Commerce, the Lake City Reporter, and Florida Gateway College. It's time now to meet the two candidates for Columbia County Commission District 2. We have the incumbent, Rusty DePrater, and the challenger, Mark Kazmierski. We drew numbers prior to coming into the studio this evening, and Mr. Kazmierski drew the number 1. You now have 2 minutes to make an address to the citizens of Columbia County.
Hi, I'm Mark Kazmierski. I'm running for Columbia County
County Commissioner of District 2. A little bit about me. I'm a paramedic and a nurse. I'm married, been married to Stephanie for 21 years. I have 2 boys. I work currently for Shands in Gainesville for their medical helicopter, Shands Care. My shift, I work 24 hours on, 72 hours off. So I've got 5 days a week to do what I need to do for the position. I believe we need to do some accountability, some transparency, and a little common sense on our board. We need to stop spending money just willy-nilly. I don't think that the solutions, not excuses, as my opponent says. I don't think he's got the solutions. All I've heard is excuses. So I need you to come out on August 26th and vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now for an opening statement, we go to the incumbent in District 2, Rusty DePrater. Mr. DePrater, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having us here for this question and answer session. My name is Rusty DePrater. I'm your current County Commissioner for District 2. I'm a lifelong resident of Columbia County. I have 2 children, Ethan and Caitlin, and a granddaughter, Cadence. Been a businessman here in the county all my life. I started my first business in 1983. Had several successful businesses over the last 30 years. I've used this experience to help maneuver the county around through these tough economic times. Just want to thank the voters of District 2 for electing me in 2010. I've been able to use my ability to, with budgets and experience in real estate, experience in the construction industry, which is very crucial in the county business, to wade through contracts, wade through bids, to help the county, to do my job best I can. I am a full-time county commissioner as of right now, as of last January. So I'm here to serve the people full-time, which is, this is pretty much a full-time job once you've been here and found out what it takes to do the job. Thank you.
Thank you both. It's now time for the question and answer segment of the broadcast. And to ask the questions tonight is the editor of the Lake City Reporter, Robert Bridges. Robert, take it away.
Thanks, Mike. First question for Mr. Kazmierski. Emergency radio coverage for first responders in the county is spotty at best, often unreliable. Do we need a new radio system, or might it be possible to upgrade or patch or make work what we have now?
Well, working as a paramedic for the county for almost 20 years before they decided to privatize it. What they did in the past was they attempted to upgrade it. They hired a consultant. They didn't do what all the things that the consultant asked them to do. So if we do a new radio upgrade, the current dollar figure that's on the board is $18 million. I can't support that, not in the economic times of today. Could we do it in phases and do that 800 megahertz radio system? From what I've been told from people that I know that do that for a living, not paid consultants, but people that actually go out and do the work, yes, they could do a phase-in type deal. I spoke with the sheriff. That is also what he supports. You go out and you purchase the land, you make the improvements to those properties, you put up the towers, and then you put up the radio system. At that point, we may be able to get better technology, cheaper as well, but we go back into the same aspect of the current system that's on the table, what they're asking to do. The service contract goes up by $100,000. So where's the plateau of that? That was not in that contract. And until we find out where that peaks, then I don't know if I could support that or not. I know that there could be some upgrades that could be made to the current system to make it better, but we need to figure out how we're going to pay for those upgrades.
Thanks. Mr. DePrater, what's your take on this issue? Do we need a new radio system? Do we need upgrades? What's the answer?
Well, We've been discussing this currently on the board. There's no decisions have been finalized on how soon the complete system would be entered into. But we have voted and approved to start purchasing sites. As my opponent said, I'm glad that he agrees with what the board's done so far. We have agreed to purchase sites, and then the next step would be to build towers, which you have to have the towers to improve the coverage. The current system has flaws, and most of the flaws are from the tower coverage. So by putting new towers in, you are patching the old system. The sheriff does agree with, I think, taking this approach. Stepping off and biting $18 million, I won't vote for that either all at one time. So there has to be a way to fund it. I'm all for the steps we've taken so far. There are recurring costs that will be involved. There are upfront costs of non-recurring money to get in a new system. The one we have is working. It's not up to grade. It hasn't been repaired in a while. We are currently repairing towers that need fixing. So the upgrades will happen. How fast they happen, you know, there's a schedule, you know, the next few years to implement it. I also believe that we need to get our infrastructure in place by the time we have our infrastructure, which is the towers and the land. The state could be in a position by then that they're upgrading their system to something compatible. We might be able to use some of their system, which would save a lot of money. There are options available out there, and that's why we are taking our time. We're not going to rush into this in the next few months and spend $18 million. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DePrater. Let's continue on in the vein of capital outlays. Our county jail is 30 years old, yet we're told it's already obsolete. Do we need a new jail?
Mine. There's a committee been set up. The board voted and asked for it to come back, which is made up of the judges, the Board of County Commissioner Chairman, the State's Attorney Office, several more. This committee will meet again, and at this time they will determine if we need a new jail, if we can update the old jail, if we can make improvements. You know, I feel like we could possibly upgrade the jail. There's a chance we could buy pods. The pods are where the inmates are kept. We can put in pods that will increase the amount of beds and do this as we can afford to do it. Again, I'm not for getting any 30-year bonds that ties up my children and their grandchildren in the future trying to pay for it. I believe we should come up and have a system to pay for it as we go, you know, which we are discussing our budget this year, which will consist of a percentage-based budget. We're going to assign X amount of percentage of the revenue towards funds that will go towards these projects so that we don't have to go out and borrow a lot of money. I don't think that's the way to go. We need to spend only what we take in. We don't need to overstep it and spend money that we don't have. So at that end, I do support improving the radio system. I want safety personnel to be safer, and that's the direction the board's going in.
Thanks. Mr. Kazmersky, what's your take on the jail? It's 30 years old, yet we're told it's obsolete.
The jail's 30 years old. Two election cycles ago, there was $5 million that was placed into a fund to begin funding that new jail. It was known at that point, a little bit better than 20 years ago, that improvements needed to be made to the current jail. Do I think we need to bite off $30 million? No. But if there's improved technology that they can put in, if there's upgrades that can be done to the current jail, whether that be structural or technology to improve the safety of those folks that are there, as well as to eliminate any escapes. If we need to move those inmates, Baker County built a very large jail. That is a possibility of housing those inmates there. Don't know the cost that would be, but that could be something that could be looked at. The idea of putting like a residential type dorm there on the property, that could also be, that's an idea that could be kicked around for the folks that are spending their weekends there in jail, where they go home during the week, Monday through Friday. They go do their job and then they come back to jail over the weekend. They could do something along that line, minimize the cost, and keep everyone safe from the general public to the folks that are working there. Thank you.
Thanks. We'll stay with you, Mr. Kaczmarski. Do you envision salary hikes in the coming fiscal year for all county employees beyond just the sheriff's office?
I hope so. Currently, there is a mass exodus of staff that are leaving all of the county departments. You've got people that have been there for example, the sheriff's office, since that was a very hot topic in the last few months. That they did make it right. They did give the sheriff some additional monies to give his officers raises. And they only did that because they were threatened with taking over the jail. I don't agree with exactly how that was done under threat, but if that's what it takes for the board to understand, every time one of the sheriff's employees leaves, it takes $14,000 to replace that employee. His department, his office is not alone in this unbudgeted monies that's going out to train these new people. We need to do something for those employees that stay with our county. Their benefit package is dwindling. Their retirement is not as good as it used to be. What they're paying in health insurance is absolutely atrocious. No one's getting good health care coverage anymore. But the only reason someone would stay is they've got 18 years in or they've got 20 years in. And we need to make it right for those employees that have stayed through thick and thin. To have someone leave after being there for 10, 20 years, to go in to a job that may not pay as much, but they got a chance of getting a raise, that's why these folks are leaving. And we need to do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Prater, do you foresee raises for all county employees the coming fiscal year beyond just the sheriff's office?
Well, we're in the budget process now. When it comes to raises, that's the recurring money that we have to come up with. When you give a raise, it comes back every year. Raise money has consequences of retirement matches. It has all the matches that are involved. My intention, yes, is to give raises to all county employees. But until we see how much revenue we've gained, we have had more revenue this year from ad valorem and some sales tax. We can't say it. We're in that part now. We were able to put the numbers together to give the sheriff some more money. The sheriff's agreed to a different structure where he'll fund him from now on, so the board's not in charge of giving his employees raises. That's been in negotiations for the last year. We didn't just start trying to tend to raises for anyone. When it boils down to it, if you're at home and you're at your house in your budget and you have $100 and you spend it, well, you don't dip into your savings account to go make a car payment. If you do that, then you're going to be out. The county operates the same way. I'll vote always to only spend the money we take in. So, they haven't been able to give raises for the past 6 years. We have had a bump in the ad valorem this year, so we will be looking at that money. If the money stretches out, all employees will get a raise. If it doesn't, then I hope the biggest part of them get a raise. But, it just boils down to economics. I want everyone to have a raise, but if the money's not there, then the raise won't come. County employees have a good package. The county has not cut the amount of health insurance we pay for them. We can't help the escalating cost. So, we're going to do the best we can for all the employees. I like all employees, and they're good employees. Thank you.
Mr. DePrater, you alluded in your answer to percent-based budgeting, which is going to be used in the coming fiscal year for the Sheriff's Office. Can you discuss that a little bit? Is it a good plan? Is it something that might be applied across the board to county offices and agencies?
Yes, sir. I like percent-based budgeting. I'll go back to the sheriff. We've allocated a percentage of 4 revenue streams, which are recurring, and they are non-restricted, so the sheriff can use the money. What it does is the sheriff has a budget set now at a percentage. So as the economic development comes back to the county, and the tax base grows, which we see signs of that now, the sheriff will get more money automatically so he can provide the services that we need him to provide. The same aspect can go for the jail project. It can go for the P25 radio system. We can allocate money each year and start saving money up so that we don't have to go in and borrow all this money at one time. It also helps the commissioners, as people have said, take a lot of politics out of the budgeting. That way the sheriff can run his operation. He doesn't have to come in and worry about what 1 or 2 board members are going to try to do. This sets the amount of money they're going to receive. This puts it in the sheriff's hands. The sheriff can give raises to all his employees at any time he wishes if this money's there. Then it's not put back on the Board of County Commissioners. I think it's a great idea. I don't think it's used very much in the state, but I'm willing to try it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, we can always fall back to the system we have that always needs to be tinkered with and tweaked with. But I like the sound of it, and I think it's a fair way to distribute the revenue of the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kazmersky, what's your take on percent-based budgeting?
Well, the Sheriff's Office got 39% of the budget. When Mark Hunter came into office, the Sheriff's budget was 43%. He gave back $700,000 out of his budget when times were tough. Now times are getting better. Now all of a sudden the answer is percent-based budget, not let's make the sheriff and the sheriff's office whole. So is percent-based budget a good thing? Well, in the lean years, it probably is. But in the fat times, in the better economic times, it wasn't used. And the question is why? Because when it starts to get lean, the different departments don't realize that until there's no money at the end of the year. So what happens with that percent-based budget when the budget is zero and you haven't paid all your bills? Then you've got to start dipping into our big savings plan. So is percent-based budgeting a good plan? Yes and no. Would I support it? More than likely, yes. Only because how it makes the whole idea of setting up a budget a lot less intrusive on the board. But you need to make sure that everybody understands that once the money runs out, the money's gone. Now, if we want to save additional monies, the percent-based budget is an excellent plan. Instead of just saving 5%, if we save 10 or 15%, and then you start pulling that money out of your savings plan, then because that's what you're going to allocate it for, then I would support that.
Mr. Kazmersky, what's the future of the Suwannee Valley Transit Authority, and what do we do to ensure the problems we've seen won't crop up again?
Well, as I understand, part of the issue with Suwannee Valley Transit, part of the problem is there was a director and not even sure what his official title was, but they were salaried employees. Every place that I've ever worked at or know anybody that is a salaried employee, they're not available or they're not able to receive comp time unless it's voted upon by the entire board that governs them. So for those folks to get, for those two individuals to get hundreds of thousands of dollars, double their pay over the years they were there, that's a big problem to me. I went to one of their meetings a few months ago, and they're talking about not being able to do Saturday runs. Where's the money going? The money has probably gone to pay those people's comp time. Their budget is forever dwindling. They're not getting additional monies from the state. The Columbia County, Hamilton County, Suwannee County may need to look at giving them an additional funding line in order to pay for those transportation costs of those that are less fortunate. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DePrater, what's the future of SVTA, and what mechanisms, if any, how do we prevent all the problems that have arisen from this agency from arising again?
Well, the Suwannee Valley Transit Authority is an independent board. There are 6 members on the board. You got 2 commissioners from Columbia, 2 from Hamilton, and 2 from Suwannee. Those 6 commissioners govern the Suwannee Valley Transit Authority. So when you have the other 3 commissioners of each county sitting over on the sideline, they're really watching and trying to take care of the small investment each county has put into it. The trouble they've had in the past, I believe, has just come from a lack of policy. When you have a policy and you can follow that policy, then it's easy to keep this type of thing from happening. When I did the research, when this started to fold like it did, the policy was very vague. I think that the policy changes could be put in place to keep this from happening again. It's very unfortunate that it happened this time, but as I said, it's a board that handles the Suwannee Valley Transit. If it was turned over to the other boards, members of the other commission, I believe you'd see a whole lot different outcome. The funding of Suwannee Valley Transit, in my opinion, wouldn't go up a nickel. It's funded mostly by Medicaid, and in the new health plan that's coming out, the funding is in question. Actually, the service contract that delivers this service to this area was out to bid, and I'm not sure that Suwannee Valley Transit even bid on it. So they may not even have the contract for this service in this sector. So what the transit does is up to the transit board. They'll operate on the funds they receive. I don't believe that any more of ad valorem from any of the counties should be put into it. I think we're only putting about $25,000 a year in it now, but I'm responsible for that $25,000, and I'd like to have a little more control over it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DePrater, this is the last question of the evening for this panel. Mr. DePrater, as a county commissioner, about how many hours a week do you spend on county business?
In certain times, I've spent 60 and 70 hours a week as a county commissioner. On average, I spend 40 to 45. That's the main reason that I sold my business in a position that I could be a full-time county commissioner. There's so many meetings and there's so many calls you get during the week and on the weekends. I don't know where. At one time, I guess it was a part-time job, but you're running to be elected, and when you're elected, to me, I received a job by the people, and I'm going to do that job the best I can, and the hours are unlimited. So when I'm out riding in the district and I see things wrong, I'm constantly calling in work orders. You have meetings every day of the week that you have to attend. Sometimes when there's a hurricane or there's a Debbie comes through and you have to go to the EOC building and you're there every day for 2 hours, and then when you leave there, you're back in the field. Debbie was terrible. I saw things I've never seen before. And during Debbie, I spent the 60 and 70 hours a week in the field, daylight to dark, there for about 8 weeks, trying to help people get where they could function and go back to work. It's a great job. I wouldn't be running for re-election if I didn't want to do it. And there's an unlimited amount of time you can spend as a commissioner. There's so much work to do. There's so many different aspects of the county. So, my opinion, it is a full-time job. Thank you.
Mr. Kazmierski, to you. If you're elected, how many hours a week do you envision spending on this job?
Well, at the bare minimum, I would think that every day it's a full-time job. How do you put that into context? If you work 12 hours a day at it, 7 days a week. I've talked to multiple county commissioners from years ago, and they haven't said that they lost sleep over it. Some of the decisions that were made, they lost sleep over. But from a work standpoint, you got to put in the number of hours that you have to in order to keep the constituents happy. Making phone calls or returning phone calls should be a big aspect of whoever you elect for District 2. My phone number's in the phone book. I'll give it to you right now, 755-1230. Easy to remember. Call me if you've got questions. Call me if I'm elected. I'll call you back. Thanks.
Thank you very much, candidates, for your answers to the questions. It's time now for each of the candidates to make a 2-minute closing statement. And since candidate Kazmierski went first, he will go last. Candidate DePrater, you have 2 minutes to close to your audience.
Thank you, Mike. I'd like to go ahead and thank the Lake Street Reporter and the Florida Gateway College and the Chamber for allowing us to come here and talk tonight. You know, we've had some basic questions here that are on complex subjects. I've been a local businessman in town for over 30 years. I've had experience in construction, which is road building. I've had experience in contracts. I've had experience in managing people. I've had as much as 70 employees at one time. I know what it takes to have an employee and to keep an employee. I'm willing to work this job as a full-time commissioner. And over the past 4 years, I've been able to gain experience in reviewing contracts that we've gone into with the county. You know, it's experience that you don't get anywhere else. When you first get elected as a commissioner and you take this job, you look for something that you're into, but it's a totally different situation. You're put in a position where people's lives depend on you. That's just like when I have my employees. Their livelihood depends on me. I take into consideration the money of the citizens. I'm very conservative with how I spend money. I spend it as if it's my own. I have no interest in losing money or putting it in a bad spot. Sometimes it happens in business, but you learn from it. You try to move on from your mistake. I do believe in finding solutions. I've done that my whole life instead of excuses. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but I won't make an excuse. I'll just tell you straight up that it didn't happen, and I'll work next time to keep it from happening. But with all these components thrown together, I believe I'm the best candidate as a commissioner for Columbia County District 2, and I can continue to make improvements in this district and provide a great service for the citizens. So I ask you to vote for me, Rusty DePrater. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we get a closing remark from Mark Kazmierski, the challenger.
My career has been built on serving the needs of the public. I put the needs of someone else ahead of mine day in and day out for the past 20 plus years that I've worked as a paramedic and a nurse. I've put the needs of someone else ahead of mine. That's why I feel I'm uniquely better to serve the public. We've talked about money, but the board continues to spend $500,000 on frivolous spending. Yet they continue to tell the county employees that there's no money there. We continue to spend money on road projects that go nowhere. We continue to spend money on giving the employees bonuses, but yet we privatize EMS. That $2 million budget, that's probably where those bonuses came from. We need to exploit the technology that's available to us. We need to think outside of the box. We need to stop the status quo for our county, and we need some new direction. So I'm going to ask you on August 26th to go out and vote for me, Mark Kazmersky, for candidate for County Commissioner, District 2. And if you've got questions, I'll give you my number again, because I'll call you back, 755-1230. Thank you.
And that concludes this segment of Candidate Forum. When we get back, we'll welcome the candidates for County Commission District 4. Don't go away.
A full life, measured in seats, starts with the right ones early on. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Learn how to prevent deaths and injuries by using the right car seat for your child's age and size.
And we're out. You got plans?
You bet. $50 million Americans struggle with hunger, but we can do something about it.
Excuse me.
What's going on?
Dinner. Please join me in helping put food on their tables. Together, we can feed America.
You guys keep going. I'm gonna get the plates.
Wait!
Find your local food bank at feedingamerica.org/hunger.
I like to consider FGC as my first grand campus. I never thought I was going to go back to school or have the time to go back to school. Now my son, 12 years old, is looking at daddy after so many years, grabbing his books and going to school. And he's so proud. And I'm teaching him that you continue, my son, and you do what you have to. But be a man of your word and finish what you start.
Start your journey today at Florida Gateway College.
This is the moment I knew. His future had no boundaries.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org.
Welcome back to the final segment of Candidate Forum 2014. I'm Mike McKee. Let's meet the commissioners for County Commission District 4. There is no incumbent in this race, as the current County Commissioner, Stephen Bailey, chose not to run for re-election. In alphabetical order, since we have 4 here tonight, we have Richard Keene, Everett Phillips, Clifton Ward, and Toby Witt. We drew numbers prior to coming into the studio, and candidate Phillips, you drew the number 1, so now you have 2 minutes to address the voters of Columbia County.
Yes, I'm Everett Phillips, and I'm from Columbia County, and I'm running for County Commissioner District 4. Been a long life resident here and would like to serve as your county commissioner. I will do the best I can to get our roads fixed up and save tax money and do the best I can to relate with all of the people. And we will work with all of the other county commissioners and do the best we can, make our better judgments with all of the decisions we have to make. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next candidate we're going to meet is Toby Witt. Mr. Witt, you have 2 minutes to address the voters of Columbia County.
Good evening. My name is Toby Witt. I'm a candidate for County Commissioner District 4. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you realize we're still in a recession. Whether you're hit at the gas pump or whether you're hit at the grocery store, inflation is a real thing for us. In the face of recession, we as taxpayers have to prioritize and conserve spending, oftentimes putting off things we need or want. Why should we not expect county government to do the same? Sometimes I wonder if our commission knows we're in recession, because in the face of this recession, we're currently considering $50 million in new spending projects, including a new jail and a new public safety radio system. I have 18 years experience in public safety as a paramedic, a flight paramedic, and now an administrator for the largest aeromedical company in the world. In my private sector job, I manage a $30 million budget, And I can assure you there are solutions to both the jail and the radio system issues that will prevent us from having to spend $50 million in new spending. A real issue in public safety and countywide is the loss of experience and high cost of employee turnover due to non-competitive wages. In the private sector, we learned this a long time ago. When we increased our wages to what the market was paying and stopped high employee turnover, our overall employee expense went down. We need to concentrate on the problems we can afford to fix and leave the big spending projects to when we're not in recession. I ran for this office 4 years ago on the message the taxpayer did not have a voice in county government, and I believe it still holds true today. I spoke out against government overreach when they were trying to pass the oppressive mandatory utility ordinance. I'm not afraid to speak up for the taxpayer, and if I'm elected, I will continue to do so. Help me make government have the same accountability that you and I have to face in this recession, and consider me your choice for County Commission District 4.
Thank you very much. The next candidate we're going to meet is Clifton Ward. Mr. Ward, you have 2 minutes to address the voters of Columbia County.
Good evening. I'm Clifton Ward. I'm running for County Commissioner District 4. I have been married for 43 years to my wife, Jeanette Ward. I have 20 years with the Florida Department, 20 years with the Florida National Guard, retired there as a construction supervisor. I have 40 years plus with the Florida Department of Transportation, in which I dealt with engineering type capacity jobs, which we're facing on our road system today. And I managed about $13 million at one time with the Florida Department of Transportation. I also had a push-button contract that I managed that was $1 million I spent in every 18 counties throughout the 2nd District, and which we had to get the biggest bang for our buck for the $1 million. I tried to get somewhere in the neighborhood of about 14 projects out of about a year. I feel like that with my past experience running contracts, the design, the managing construction projects, that I'm well qualified to be your next county commissioner. Hopefully I can lead us into the next future.
Thank you very much. The next candidate we're going to meet is, last but not least, Richard Keene. Mr. Keene, you now have 2 minutes to address the voters of Columbia County.
Good evening. My name is Richard Keene, and I'm your candidate for County Commissioner District 4. I'm a lifelong resident of Columbia County and also spent my 12 years in school here in the Columbia County school system. In the past, I've worked for Columbia County for over 18 years, working as a field appraiser, code enforcement officer, and building inspector. Currently, I am a builder of homes and also the head football coach at Lake City Middle School. I believe strongly in servant leadership, as I feel that you, the people, should have a voice in all things in government. I will always listen to your concerns, return phone calls to you, return your emails, as that is important to me to find not only the problems, but finding solutions to the problems we face today. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. It's now time for the question and answer segment of the broadcast, and to ask the questions tonight is editor of the Lake City Reporter, Robert Bridges.
Thanks, Mike. Mr. Phillips, let's talk about emergency radio coverage. It's spotty, it's unreliable, it's bad. Something has to be done, but what, in your view?
In the emergency system, you said?
Yes, sir. The emergency radio system for first responders.
Yes, the emergency radio system is bad. I worked with the Columbia County Road Department for a year and a half. We had problems on the north end of the county and the south end of the county being able to communicate with everybody. So I think we need some adjustment. We need to get on a different cycle with maybe the state patrol people that doesn't have a problem. But I don't think we're quite ready to have our own $20 million worth of towers and radios of our own. So I think we just need to try to get communication with somebody else and go from that point.
Mr. Witt, what's the answer to the radio problem?
Well, I work with the county and I work with the system that's in place today, and I can tell you that when it was first put in, it worked great. We had coverage throughout the county. The problem is it wasn't maintained properly. The other problem is now you've got a vendor trying to sell us a 800 megahertz system, and the vendor's telling you that we have to upgrade this because VHF is dead. I have 14 air operations all over the state. I work with every county in Florida except for Miami-Dade and Palm Beach, and I can tell you VHF is not dead technology. In fact, the P25 upgrade they're wanting, the reason they're wanting to buy the 800 system is also available in the VHF system. So our neighboring counties, Dixie County, Levy County, are upgrading their systems. They're getting the same coverage as Motorola is wanting to provide us for $1 million as opposed to $20 million. So there are solutions to the problem. I just think that we're listening to one consultant and one vendor, and if we don't be careful, we're going to go down the wrong path and cost the taxpayers a lot of money.
Thank you. Mr. Ward, weigh in on the radio question, please.
The radio tower situation, I hear 20 million. When I went to commission, it was 18 million. The radio system, if we're going to save a life out there, we need the 800 megahertz system. I believe that. I believe our sheriff's office is supporting the 800 megahertz system. And I think we need to follow our law enforcement and our EMS people here. If this is what they want, we should definitely give them. They should know what works in this county. They have followed all the, looked at it quite intensely, as far as I know. And the only problem I have with any of this, that in the St. Johns County area, they got the same system for $14 million versus $18 million. I think we need to look at that possibly as a money saving for the county.
Thank you. Mr. Keene, same question to you.
Well, 16 million, 18 million, 20 million. That's a pretty big burden for our taxpayers to have to come up with. There's other counties and communities in our area that has used the state system and had great luck with it. I know that we need to upgrade what we have due to the safety and the welfare of our emergency personnel, our safety personnel, and make sure that they're safe in their jobs throughout the county. But I would not be in favor of spending upwards of $15 million on a radio system that we could probably get for $4 or $5 million worth of upgrades to do the same job. Thank you.
Mr. Keene, we'll stay with you for the next question. Let's stay focused on spending large sums of money. Our county jail is 30 years old. We're told that 30 years old means it's obsolete. Do we need a new jail?
We may need a new jail, but I think we can live with what we have with some upgrades that would give us room that we need. I understand that our guards, our administration needs to be safe when they're within the jail, but at the same time, at a $30 million, $35 million price tag, once again, that's a big burden for our taxpayers to assume. At no time would I be in favor of raising taxes, whether it be sales taxes, property taxes, gas taxes, any other taxes to build a new jail or for a new communication system. During tight economic times, I feel that we all need to tighten our belt just a little tighter. We need to work a little harder, and we need to come up with better solutions than spending large sums of money on items such as jails and communication systems. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ward, what's your opinion on the question of a new jail?
The jail system, from what I understand right now, is that there's a committee that is going through the review process to see what we need to do out there with the jail. Until we get all this information back, we got judges, we got people that are of authority sitting on this committee. We need to listen to what they have and don't make no hasty decisions about anything concerning the jail. I've heard rumors that people want to put them in tents and everything. When you start putting people in tents, you don't want that. That opens you up to one of the largest lawsuits that could ever happen. Columbia County's not into paying out lawsuits for unnecessary needs. We need to get in there and fix our jail. We need to look at it and see if we do need a jail first, and then after that point we'll go from there and decide if we want to build a new one or if we can piecemeal it. And piecemealing a lot of times is not the answer.
Mr. Witt, what do you think?
Well, do we need a new jail? If you talk to some people, we have a capacity problem. If you talk to others, we don't. Depends on who you talk to. I know I don't want to take on $30 million in new spending for a new jail right now. We can't afford it. As far as other options, there's a significant amount of that jail population that's serving a weekend sentence. So if somebody that's serving a weekend sentence is going to drive himself up and check himself into the jail, do we really need to house those folks behind bars and high security, or can we have other options? We house school children in portable buildings. We house soldiers overseas in portable buildings. Could we have some low security portable buildings for the jail, especially those inmates that do weekend time? I think, and maybe that solution won't work, but it's a solution. I think there's many ideas we could throw out there besides spending $30 million on a new jail. And maybe one day we will have to tackle that. But I can't believe that 25 years ago when this jail was built, it was only built the last 30 years. And if we did that 25 years ago, when we do it again, we got to do something different because the state of Florida houses inmates in structures much older. And regardless of what we do, you don't take on big spending in a recession. We need to find ways to solve the issues out there besides burden the taxpayer with a high spending project.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips, please address the question of whether a new jail is in order.
Well, I think we really kind of need some upkeep on our jail, and we need some new things to happen to the jail, but I don't think we need to spend $30 million at this point in time. But when we get to where we need to spend this money to have a new jail, maybe we can get some grants from our government to kind of help us do this new jail project. But as far as helping our law officers and protecting them, we do need some kind of assistance working on the jail to kind of remodel or do something in that effect.
Thanks. Mr. Phillips, we'll stick with you. Do you envision salary hikes in the coming fiscal year for all county employees beyond simply the sheriff's office?
I think you asked the question, was I wanting some...
Would you vote for salary hikes for all county employees beyond simply the sheriff's office?
The sheriff's office has received their raise money into the sheriff, and I think that all of the, not all of the county employees, I want to see the county employees say somewhere around 40,000 or below. I think they all need upgrades in their pay. There's a lot of guys out there working for less than $9 an hour, and they're really struggling to make ends meet, being able to buy groceries and pay house payment and even have a car or gas to put in it. So yes, I'm willing to try to help the lower paid county employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Witt, would you vote for raises for all county employees beyond what's already been given for the sheriff's office?
Well, we haven't given raises in 5 or 6 years since the recession hit. We dealt with this in the private sector too. We froze our wages too when the recession first hit. And an interesting thing happened when you leave wages stagnant that long. You pay more money in retention of employees when people leave than you would have spent giving them raises. We had a item on the consent agenda in the county commission meeting a few weeks ago. I think it was $120,000 because of turnover in dispatch. So we realized this in my private company. When we brought our wages up to market, our overall employee costs went down. So I think you're going to find if we do the same thing in the county, that will happen. You can't leave wages stay stagnant forever. You got to do something about it. It's costing you more money in training costs when these folks leave, and we're losing experience not only in the sheriff's office but countywide.
Thank you. Mr. Ward, what's your take on the question of raises, possibly, for all county employees?
I am definitely in favor of raises for county employees. I have put it on my card initially for the sheriff's office, all our first responders, our fire rescue, and the county employees. I have that on my cards that I pass out today. I am definitely a favor of raises.
Thank you. Mr. Keene, please address the same question. Raises for all county employees?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm proud of the sheriff for sticking up for his people and getting them raises and getting them where they start out at a new salary line when they begin to work with the sheriff's department. Also, as a former county employee, I understand the plight of the county employee. Low wages, insurance is always going up, everything around us is going up, and salaries has been stagnant for the last 7 or 8 years. I understand that in the past, the county has found ways to give them lump sums of money at the end of the year, which helps, but it's not the answer to their problem of needing more money to spread around the bills and what goes on around the house. So to answer your question, yes, I would most definitely be in favor of raises for all county employees.
Thank you. This is our last question of the evening. We'll stick with you, Mr. Keene. The Suwannee Valley Transit Authority has been plagued with deep structural problems that go beyond the alleged misdeeds of any 1 or 2 employees. What needs to be done to make sure things go smoothly in that agency in the future?
Well, when they created the Suwannee Valley Transit Authority, it was a great organization and a great operation. It ran smoothly for several years until the wheels kind of fell off the bus. Don't really know what the answer to fixing the Suwannee Valley Transit Authority is right now, other than bringing new ideas to the table, which would be bringing new people to the table to have a vision for the future, so we would have a starting place and a finishing place to create a better authority there.
Thank you, Mr. Keene. Mr. Ward, same question for you. What would you do to prevent the debacle of the Suwannee Valley Transit Authority from recurring?
Well, any time that you write a contract, you should read it and prepare it well, that they know that they're getting paid X amount of dollars. And that's a yearly salary, not overtime or comp time or whatever it may be, getting paid for it. They should be on straight salary, and what I'm talking about now is the people we're talking about that were misusing the system. So anytime that you have people misusing the system, either our contracts are not being well written or well managed. In the future, we need to make sure that does not happen. So to do that, you're going to have to be straight and make sure all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted. So that's the only way you can manage that particular type of situation.
Thank you. Mr. Witt, please address the same question.
Well, I actually attended a couple of those meetings a couple of months ago, and I was struck by the amount of detail that the commissioners on that board get into, how many patients transported that month or that week. I think we need a 50,000-foot view of that thing. I think we need to reevaluate what's government's role in these organizations. And to me, government's role is to look out for the taxpayer funds. So number one, you got to have the people in place that's able to do that job. You got to make sure you have the correct people in place, and you got to hold them accountable. And number two, somebody's got to be watching the funds. And I think if somebody had been paying attention to the finances going on in SVTA, instead of getting involved in the minute details of the day-to-day running of things, we probably wouldn't have had that scandal.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips, to you. How to prevent another recurrence of something like the SVTA scandal?
Well, I think that they should have some new personnel to take care of the money if they're going to spend that kind of money on overtime and comp time, whatever they've done there. But they need people that should have the people watching over it. Like Toby said, somebody needs to be watching the financial part of it, and they would know where the money was going to. And then they would say, well, where's this money going to? We need to find out. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. That concludes the question and answer portion of this segment. It's time now for each candidate to make a 2-minute closing statement to the constituents in District 4. Since candidate Phillips went first, he will go last. Candidate Keene, you now have 2 minutes to make a closing statement.
Thank you. Well, on the way to town this morning, I seen a sign at a local church that said, "As long as our mouth keeps moving, we cannot learn." Made me think about that a little bit, to say that our local government, our state government, and our federal government seems all they do is talk. They talk continuously about what we can do, what we need to do, what we should do, when we should do it. It's time we sit back and listen. We need to hear the people. We need to understand what the people's needs are, what their concerns are, and we need to address those concerns rather than talk to the people. We need to listen to them. We also need to when we hear from the people, we need to be able to formulate a plan to carry out projects. And when we formulate that plan, we need to start doing then. So, as your commissioner, I will always listen to the people. I will always hear your voice. I will always listen. And I'll always plan and do from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keene. Next to make a closing statement is candidate Clifton Ward. Mr. Ward, you have 2 minutes.
I want to be your full-time county commissioner. I am totally retired, so I don't have any outside projects that I'm working on other than what my wife wants me to do. And to be a full-time county commissioner makes a difference with the folks out there. When you have your calls, when you can go see them, you can see exactly what they're wanting and make sure that that you're able to answer those questions right there on the spot. I will be that county commissioner that can do that. I will be accessible at all times for the county. So if you have a need, I'm going to leave you with one other thing. I'm going to leave you with my cell number now. It's area code 386-397-3231. That's my cell phone number. So I want you to be able to remember that and get in contact with me at any point in time that you need something. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. And now, Mr. Witt, you have 2 minutes to make your closing statement to the constituents in District 4.
You know, Ronald Reagan once said that status quo was Latin for the mess we're in. So let me tell you how I see our status quo. We renewed a gas tax just because we've levied it for years without any consideration for reducing it or doing away with it to provide some relief to the taxpayer. We have millions of wasteful spending hidden in a consent agenda every month. We spend thousands of dollars on paid consultants, oftentimes for projects that have no chance of passing a vote, and oftentimes the advice we get from these consultants conflicts with the advice they gave a few years past. We do all this with very little debate in the meeting, which should be the only chance all 5 of our commissioners have to discuss these items, and the public has as well. I can promise you that I'm not the establishment's choice of candidate. In fact, I probably scare them to death. I've been reminded that it takes 3 commissioners to get anything done on the board, and my argument to that is it only takes 1 to lead. So if you're looking for somebody to get elected, sit down and be silent and blend in, then I'm not your choice. But if you're looking for somebody to use that microphone in front of him, stand up for the taxpayer, speak out against wasteful spending and conflicts of interest, then I want to stand up for you. I encourage you to consider me your choice in County Commissioner on August 26th and during early voting. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Mr. Everett Phillips. You now have 2 minutes to make a closing statement.
As your county commissioner, I would like to be at your service all the time. I do have a cell phone, and I'm not publishing it right this moment, but when I become county commissioner, I will publish it on the air. Everybody can have it, and we can all get together and talk about what we need to do. We need to fix some roads. We need to save taxes, and we also need to help our people out in our county get a little bit more money, for sure. But if you take the time on August the 26th go to the poll and vote Everett Phillips for County Commissioner. I sure would appreciate it. Thank you.
And that concludes tonight's live broadcast of Candidate Forums. I'd like to thank all of the candidates for their attendance and would like to thank our sponsors, Potash Corporation of White Springs, Tommy Demas, Attorney at Law, and Gators Dockside. We invite you to join us for live election coverage on the 28th of August. We'd like to also thank the Chamber of Commerce and the Government Relations Committee for their support in putting this program on. Until election night, I'm Mike McKee for Robert Bridges. Good night.